Barcadians, and welcome to another edition of Gaming News Weekly, your weekly roundup of all the best and biggest stories in the games industry. With your hosts, me, Tabs, and my good friend, channel cohort, fellow mischief maker, Rich. Say hello, Rich.
Hello.
If you've not seen the show before, well, make sure you smash that like button straight away, subscribe to the channel and ring the bell for notifications.
Absolutely.
But for your edification, the way we play things, we always talk first about what we've mostly been playing this week. We then catch up on usually 3 juicy news stories and finish with an everything we couldn't fit into the news but mop up in a quick fire round. But, however, of course, it has been E3 season 2021. So we've got a bit of an E3 special this week, a lot to fit in because obviously a lot of announcements crammed in. So yeah, I think we should probably save time, get to that shortly. But Rich, kick us off with what you've mostly been playing this week.
Quiet week on the games front for me. Busy week, to be honest. Lots going on inside and outside of work. And I think I've only really played Rocket League for, I don't know, an hour or so. That's my gaming from this week. Very, very small. And I feel like I've let the side down with that. So I apologise. But Tabs, what about you? I'm sure you've had more success with gaming than I have.
Not that much, to be honest, mate. Yeah, it's a similar story whereby I've just probably touched base twice, I think, with Pro Evolution Soccer and my Master League, led by Cristiano Ronaldo, who is currently 17, I think, in my game. He's respawned.
Nice.
So yeah, I've really savoured like literally a few matches, mostly today, because like you, mate, it's been quite a busy week in the personal life. So yes, not a lot to say apart from that. Of course, I think our eyes have been glued, both of ours, mate,
Absolutely.
where possible, to E3. Especially, I know we were both excited for the Nintendo Direct, which delivered an uneven result, but mostly positive, and we'll come to that shortly. But in fact, shall I kick us off, mate? Let's just go straight into it.
Let's get straight on with it. We've got plenty to get through, so let's crack on.
So, first headline is Nintendo steals the show? ? So the article comes a bit of a scene setter for us from digital trends, and then we'll wax lyrical on what our perspectives were, Rich. But here we go. Digital Trends said, despite the seemingly insurmountable odds, Nintendo gave fans the direct they've been craving for years. First and foremost, we finally got a new look at the sequel to The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild, and it didn't disappoint. It looks stunning and features some genuinely intriguing new ideas thanks to new abilities and its use of Sky to expand Hyrule. You know it's a good direct when that wasn't even the biggest news of the show though. Nintendo delivered several surprises that felt like a dream. Metroid Fusion is getting a proper sequel in Metroid Dread, the first original 2D Metroid game in 19 years. WarioWare is back from the grave with a new co-op game called WarioWare Get It Together. Even the entirely dead Advance Wars franchise made a shocking comeback with Advance Wars 1 and 2 Reboot Camp. Really excited about that. Which remasters the first 2 Game Boy Advance games. The bottom line was that there was a little something for every Nintendo fan during the show, which is an increasingly rare occurrence in Directs. And I think that's what Nintendo was going for as they set the scene at the start of the Direct. Finally, Digital Trends said, with a strong finish to the uneven event, Nintendo may have saved E3 from a seemingly inevitable death. For now, at least, it delivered a genuine water cooler moment that kept the event relevant on its final day. That was crucial after a basically non-existent day 3 that left fans out in the cold. Through a non-existent day 3 that left fans out in the cold. So, notable announcements before I throw over to you, Rich, just give you a little bit of preparation. So the biggies, I suppose, were Advance Wars 1 and 2 Reboot Camp, Cruisin' Blast, Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, I think there's an expansion, Untitled, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild sequel, The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword HD, Mario Golf Super Rush, Mario Party Superstars, Metroid Dread, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, at least a new fighter announced, and WarioWare Get It Together. So whistle stop tour, Barcadians, but Rich, why don't you give us a bit more of a personal perspective on the Nintendo Direct? Did it tick the box for you? What are you excited about?
So, for me, if they hadn't shown Breath of the Wild 2 at the end, it was quite lacklustre. I know people are like waxing lyrical about some of the games that were shown, but there was a lot for me filler there of games that I'm just like, why are they making these games? How are they relevant? No one's buying these games, surely. I mean, they must be, because they wouldn't be doing it otherwise. But yeah, there was a lot of games in there I wasn't interested in. But I have to say, Breath of the Wild 2 looks fantastic. It looks like they've actually implemented quite a lot of new things. And they're hearing rumours from fans that they think maybe there's 2 links. There's not 1 link now, there's 2, or it may even be Princess Zelda, possibly. But the in the sky link and the down on the ground link basically look like 2 different characters. And they're not sure how they relate at the moment. Go on, Tabs.
Let's save our ponderings, mate, for a separate video, as my nephew Joe has summoned from us. He's begging us to do an analysis video, so we'll perhaps save that for then, mate. But
absolutely.
No, carry on.
But then apart from that, there wasn't loads that really ticked. I know that I do have to say the new Metroid Dread looks cool. I feel like, does that like... Would I rather that than Metroid 4, even though Metroid 4 is not really a game I would play? But I think the fans really want to see Metroid 4, and the fact they said it's still in the oven cooking, I sort of think, yeah, but it's been in the oven cooking for a long time. When are we going to hear more information on this? So I would say overall, I'm going to give it a 6 or a 7 out of 10, but I think it's very much, for me, saved by the Breath of the Wild 2 stuff right at the end. What do you make of it, Tabs? What do you think?
No, I tend to agree with you, mate. I think I'll put my critical hat on. I would absolutely agree. You know, what was it, a 40-minute sesh?
Yeah.
I think there was a great deal of filler in there, wasn't there?
Absolutely.
Things like the Hyrule Warriors expansion announced. You know, it started off really good, actually, with the Smash Fighter introduction. Kazuya, is it?
Yeah.
Which I thought was brilliantly done. And then, you know, we got dotted around either a lot of titles we already knew were coming out, or some real filler in there, and some quite obscure games, didn't we? I forget what it was called. Is it Danrumpa? Or some sort of Japanese game that seems very niche. No, it might be brilliant. I don't know, but it felt like it was filler to the whole thing. And like you say, apart from me personally, because I'm a big Advance Wars fan, also really excited for WarioWare, this cooperative get it together game. The Legend of Zelda did, the Breath of the Wild sequel trailer snuck in and did save it for me. However, I would still say, again, critical hat on, when you compare it, mate, to what we saw with that recent Horizon Forbidden West demo, kind of demo reel trailer, gameplay insight.
Yeah.
That hit every note I could have imagined in my, in the best possible way. I came away from that feeling like they couldn't have done a better job, even if they had the most brilliant minds in the entire planet, putting together that one trailer. And unfortunately, even though I'm excited about the Breath of the Wild 2 trailer, I didn't come away feeling quite as satisfied with what we saw.
The thing is, you look at all of these things critically and you go, okay, right, what do I want to see? What do I wish was in the next game? If I'm critical about the original game, say Breath of the Wild, which even though me and you think is absolute perfection, there's still things that we think could be better. But there was nothing in that trailer that made me think this game's going to be as good or better than the original. I don't know. I know exactly what you mean with the Horizon. We saw lots of things that you like, oh, okay, yeah, I'd wanted that, or that'll make it better. Wow, the graphics are incredible. Oh, they've improved the facial animation. There was loads of things that you were like, right, this is really building now. This is going to be something special. Whereas, didn't really get that. It almost felt like a bit of an unfinished game, which it must be. It's not come out yet, but it felt like there wasn't enough to show us that yes, it is going to be, on par with what we hold is in what amazing esteem is the original Breath of the Wild.
Oh, 100%, mate. I felt like, I don't want to do the disservice to whoever put it together, but it felt a bit thrown together, the trailer. Wasn't as authored and well-authored as the first teaser we saw for the Breath of the Wild 2 sequel. Just felt a bit piecemeal and a bit frantic. But that could be just, it's the pandemic. It's maybe Nintendo's way. They want to focus on just getting the game built, not focus all their time on making a really beautiful E3 trailer. And you could probably put that same philosophy onto the likes of Metroid 4 as well. You know, they may have been able to put a load of time into making a beautiful looking Metroid Prime 4 trailer all through 3, but that takes time away from actually focusing on the overall development of the game.
Absolutely.
So maybe that's just Nintendo's philosophy, and you know, I'm not going to hold it against them. It was just a shame, again, not to see something of that, because it's been, you know, how many years in the making now, and we know it's in development hell. But overall, you know, putting my grateful hat on, given there's been a pandemic, given we know the troubles going on in the world, you know, there's going to be people who slaved over this, and you know, I appreciate it, and I'm grateful.
From what I'm hearing from fans of Nintendo, the big thing that I'm hearing that people really wanted to see and they missed out on was an expansion on Animal Crossing. Lots of talk. Why have they not done that? Why is it not happening? And it's been such a big hit, especially in the last sort of 12, 18 months with what's been going on in the world. There was a lot of talk about missed opportunities, and that there were people who were disappointed with that. But I'm not an Animal Crossing player, so I wasn't too bothered about that. But anyway, I think that's enough about that. Should we move on to the next one?
You take us away, Rich. Story number 2.
So next up,
E3 Bonanza.
Absolutely, next up, and to be honest, I didn't see a great deal of this. I was tied up at the time and I've not had a chance to get back and watch this, but it's Xbox and Bethesda weren't far off of how good the Nintendo show was. So let's get into it, and this little bit of blurb comes from Tech Radar. The Xbox and Bethesda showcase was the watershed moment Xbox Series X and Xbox Series S owners have been patiently waiting for. In a 90-minute conference stuffed full of new and genuinely exciting announcements, Microsoft not only answered the fiercest criticism levelled at its new hardware, a lack of games, but also showed that its billion-dollar investments in Bethesda and countless other studios is about to pay off in a big way. Suddenly though, the outbreak for what's coming on Xbox Series X and Xbox Series S in 2021 and the years ahead seemed bountiful. And with the Xbox Game Pass and as the driving force, it's made Microsoft's new console an extremely attractive proposition for gamers. Microsoft should be credited for not only curating a show that included heavy hitters like Starfield and Halo Infinite, but also included such a diverse selection of titles. From impressive independent titles such as Replaced and The Ascent to the silly mayhem of Party Animals, it was a show that catered more to the masses rather than those who simply own Microsoft machine. We also saw that Xbox Series X hardware can do, which is something some fans have been crying out for. Stalker 2 promises to be a graphical tour de force for the system. Microsoft's Flight Simulator seems to be equally mesmerising on Xbox as it is on PC, and the phenomenal looking Forza Horizon 5 was jaw-droppingly beautiful. So I think the big takeaway for me from this was Xbox have gone from certainly in the last generation of being a games console or a games sort of brand that didn't have many exclusives. You know, there was the odd one here or there, but with the acquisition of these big studios and some of these big games that were announced, they seem to have gone from having not so many to having maybe the most they've ever had in terms of exclusivity. And some of the games are looking especially good. What do you make of this, Tabs? I know you were watching along and you were quite impressed by this, weren't you?
Yeah, I think they did a good job for the most part. There were some parts of it which, again, lost the impact of some of the reveals and the announcements we saw. But on the whole, I thought it was a solid showing. So just to rattle off the notable announcements, and I'll touch upon the bits that really took my eyes. So Elder Scrolls Online, Fallout 76, Redfall, Starfield, which we now know is exclusive to the Xbox consoles, PC as well, I think. Forza Horizon 5, Halo Infinite, Microsoft Flight Simulator, Psychonauts 2, Sea of Thieves, some sort of really cool expansion, actually.
Yes.
So yeah, the things that stuck out for me were Starfield, of course. We finally saw it, although did we really? It wasn't much. I think it was the in-game engine, I think, but there wasn't much of a gameplay cross-section. It was all kind of very moody, atmospheric shots almost of the world. But, enough there to kind of tease you and tantalise you, so fair enough. Forza Horizon 5 looked absolutely insane. I know you played, was it 4?
Yes.
Horizon? Yeah. And enjoyed it. And this looks to be more of the same, but, the graphical fidelity has just gone through the roof. Looks really next gen. Halo Infinite, again, I didn't see, apart from a nice flashy cinematic, much of the actual single player game. Although the cinematic looked nice. Again, if it was in-game engine, great. It looked a lot better than that last snippet we saw. And then I think of the multiplayer, they did do a bit more on that, and that actually does look really cool, really fun. And then the other two things that stuck out for me, Psychonauts 2, massive fan of the original. This had an insane trailer, looks super creative, almost smacked Rich of me of, It Takes Two. Kind of level of creativity and
brilliant
platforming ingenuity. So I'm really excited for that. It looks like the injection of, perhaps Xbox backing has just made that game even better than what it was going to be. And then Sea of Thieves, they're in a stroke of genius, I think, kind of signed up with Pirates of the Caribbean, seemingly getting all of the voice actors, the actual genuine cast from Pirates of the Caribbean, during the pandemic to lend their voices as well. I'm not sure on that. It sounds like them all. Could just be sound-alikes. But either way, I thought that was a great little, a way to relight the fire of Sea of Thieves with Pirates of the Caribbean, which is globally loved. So I'm sure that'll go down well. But yeah, go on, mate.
And that's actually a proper tie-up with Disney as well, because the Disney logo flashed up on that trailer. So that is a proper, legit tie-up there. That's not them making it look like Pirates of the Caribbean. That's legit.
This is it, mate. And another little tip of the iceberg as to what we've talked in recent weeks about an increase in, the movie industry, TV industry coming together with the games industry.
Absolutely.
I'm convinced we're going to see more and more and more of that as we move forward. But yeah, suffice to say, in a nutshell, really impressed by Xbox. Some rough sections, but on the most part, if I was an Xbox console owner, I'd be sitting there pretty smug after that.
Yeah, agreed.
Absolutely. So, yes, BArcadians, let us know what you think, of course. We're all about sharing passion for gaming generally. We don't want to start or fuel any console warring. Although, if you follow the channel, I was gutted that Bethesda have obviously been bought up by Xbox and kind of denies a lot of the fans of the series easy access to that unless you've got plenty of money, you can buy all the consoles. But yeah, let us know your thoughts on Microsoft's E3. But Rich, shall I carry us on into the next and final?
Absolutely, go for it.
Fantastic. So this is our normal everything else section, which we've kind of pivoted towards E3. So we're basically just going to rattle off, and perhaps we can take this in turns, Richard, just to share the load.
Absolutely.
Everything else at E3, apart from those kind of big conferences from Xbox and Nintendo, what were the main headlines in other areas? It's not an exhaustive list, but it's kind of the headlines, as I say. So this came from PC Gamer, Andy Kelly's article. So let's crack on, Rich. So Summer Games Fest, this is what Andy Kelly had to say. I enjoyed this. It felt like classic E3, a host on stage, big reveals, shameless celebrity cameos, and even a few musical performances. All it was missing was the cringe. Kojima talked, mysteriously of course, about his next game. Japanese breakfast was wonderful. Elden Ring was, Elden Ring. It was just a good time. If I must sit through a feature-length commercial, which is what E3 shows all are, I might as well be entertained. So thumbs up from Andy Kelly on Summer Games Fest. What did he have to say, Rich, about the Ubisoft Forward event?
So he said, and I feel like this is a theme for Ubisoft, sadly unremarkable. There was some DLC for Watch Dogs and Assassin's Creed, a new season of For Honor, an overlong Rainbow Six Extraction presentation, and a fleeting glimpse of Far Cry 6. The big reveal was Avatar Frontiers of Pandora, but it was impossible to get a sense of the game from the shiny trailer. Ubisoft usually delivers when it comes to conference cringe, but it didn't even have that going for it this year. And just to touch on that while we're talking about it, because me and Tabs have spoken a little bit at length about this in the last few days, Ubisoft have become a bit bland. That would be a good way of describing it. They've become a bit stale, and we're worried that the Avatar series may fall into those traps of trying to be, something for everyone rather than something groundbreaking and beautiful and stuff. So we are a little bit worried that the Ubisoft are making the Avatar game, but we're hoping they can find their form with that and show us what they can do. So fingers crossed on that one.
Completely agree, mate. I think Ubisoft games in recent times, they're a lack of vision, aren't they? At times, it's like too many ideas thrown in the hat, and it just becomes almost just loses its identity.
Absolutely.
And hopefully that doesn't happen with Avatar, because they could do some great stuff with that game. But yeah, concerns. Anyway, so Andy Kelly, a PC gamer, of course, he had this to say about the Square Enix event. So similar lines to Ubisoft. The big reveal here was Guardians of the Galaxy game by Eidos Montreal, which looks like a lot of fun. I'm not sure I agree with that. But the rest of the show was pretty forgettable, but I've got to give a special shout out to Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin. This new thing from Team Ninja is one of the least visually appealing games I've ever seen in my life, and the trailer, truly awful. Team Ninja makes great action games, but man, this thing is hideous.
Oh dear!
So suffice to say, Andy Kelly of PC Gamer did not like what Square Enix had to show. Apart from Guardians of the Galaxy.
What? Why don't you think Guardians? I thought it looked interesting from the. I saw the trailer that was in the Nintendo conference. I thought it looked interesting.
Mate, I'm just expecting the same sort of perversion of an IP, the likes we saw with Marvel's Avengers.
Right. Okay.
Where it's just, they're taking this potential for, brilliant video gaming fun, and then they're just turning it into some sort of commercial cash cow. That's what I'm worried with. And also, some of the characters looked weird, mate, because you get used to what they look like in the films.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
They look almost a bit, either go that way, make them look alikes, or go in a completely, I don't know, make it cel shaded as opposed to real looking.
Yeah.
Anyway, mate, what did Andy Kelly have to say about Capcom?
So he said, this wasn't really a proper E3 show, just a brief rundown of games we already knew existed, including Resident Evil Verse, that completely average looking Resident Evil multiplayer thing. There was also comically nothing teaser about Resident Evil Village DLC that is apparently in development. As a detective game fan, I was pretty jazzed to see the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles. I can't wait to play that, but in general, this was a bit of a washout. Apologies.
Written this in a very conversational. No, he's written it very conversationally, so it's hard to read, isn't it? I'm with you on that. So yeah, again, bit of a non-entity from Capcom in a nutshell. Now, I'll finish up Devolver Digital, because I really love this. I was texting you, wasn't I, Rich?
Yeah, raving about it. Get on it.
Obviously, Rich and I had a lot to say in our parody song, if you're a fan of the channel, about some of the woes of the games industry in recent years, the kind of commerciality, the corporate nature that has infected it. And this kind of, I don't know what you'd call it, dramatization, kind of parody, satirical. Anyway, it was brilliant. It really aped that, but in a real classy way. And the writing I thought was brilliant. So if you haven't already seen it, check it out. But this came, a little blurb about the Devolver Digital event from The Verge. And they said, Devolver Digital made its return to E3 with another no-holds-barred satirical swipe at the games industry, taking shots at subscriptions, games as a service, and even NFTs, which I think is non-fungible. I forget what the T stands for. Anyway, let's not worry about that. Dubbed the Devolver Max Pass Plus, the new era of monetization as a service, this is all tongue-in-cheek. The spoof showcase features the infamous Devolver executive Nina Struthers and her cohorts extolling the ridiculous virtues of its new service. So it was all just a big piss take on, again, what we've talked about and what we hate about modern gaming. But anyway, their big kind of reveals were Shadow Warriors 3, Trek to Yomi, Phantom Abyss, Wizard with a Gun, Death's Door, Inscription, Devolver Tumble Time, and Demon's Roll. To say, yeah, it's worth a watch. I did like the look of some of those games as well. But yes, BArcadians, I'll take a breath. That is everything we've got to share this week from this E3 2021 bonanza. Rich, any final thoughts from yourself before I...
So, a couple of things. So, firstly, obviously, we know that Sony have decided a couple of years ago they're not going to attend E3. I know E3 is not really a thing now, it's a digital thing, but they decided not to do that. They do their own thing. So, look for stuff in the coming days, weeks from them to sort of even out the balance on that. And then just a general note that I felt like E3 was very lackluster this year. I mean, as a digital event, it's cool, but does it get the excitement hyped up for all the fans and the whoops and the stuff from the big reveals with all the crowds in these arenas when it happens? I don't know. It just doesn't have the same magic when it's a digital event. And the fact that potentially we're not going to see a proper E3 again now, I do think the games industry has lost something. So. Yeah, I hope we do see a proper E3 back at some point, but I don't hold out that much hope.
No, again, mate, following you, grateful hat back on. I completely agree with you. It certainly was hamstrung significantly by the conditions, and that was clear for all to tell. I'm happy, though, that essentially, even these developers that just showed up, basically, with very little to show and turned it into something of nothing in the end. At least it's a placeholder for E3, and there's a will there amongst the games industry to say, we're not just going to let this format fade into obscurity. We want to keep it as a highlight and as a milestone in the annual calendar. And I'm all for that. I want to see that. And I was disappointed in the same way because Sony didn't show up the same. And hopefully, as you say, we're going to see something in the coming, weeks and days, which is something of their offering. I did hear a rumour, actually, mate, you'll be interested in. Something on Twitter about a PS5 exclusive which starts with an S and ends in an L. And somebody went, is that Silent Hill? So,
obviously.
Could be, again, something or nothing, but interesting.
I know, obviously, lots of people getting together. It's not really a thing at the current, in lots of countries, including this one at the moment, but and me and Tabs do this a lot. If we're watching something together or we're playing something together, we're feeding off each other's reactions to it. If someone else is being blown away by it or they're super excited by it, then it heightens that excitement for everybody else. So having a crowd of people there getting super excited for whatever it is, it just changes your thoughts about what it is, be it Keanu Reeves coming out and being as part of Cyberpunk, that was a massive thing because everyone went mental about it. It's one of those, I just think that's the thing that E3 was missing this year.
100%, mate. And I know, I will stop soon. But that's what this channel was, what we always wanted this channel to be about, wasn't it? It's just sharing a passion, sharing enthusiasm, because it makes everything more meaningful.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can scream and shout and be excited in a room on your own. And it's possible. But when you're doing that in a room of people with like minds, with common ground, common interest, how much more meaningful is that and memorable?
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what it's all about. But I will let the Barcadians crack on. We shall bring this one to a close. Don't forget, though, of course, join us again this time next week, Friday, 5 p.m. UK time, for another Gaming News Weekly. As ever, please make sure you smash the like button to support the channel. Make sure you subscribe to the channel and you rang the bell for notifications to stay abreast of everything we do. Stay tuned, perhaps. Well, in fact, we've got a Death Stranding analysis coming your way if you are a Death Stranding fan.
Yeah.
And we're looking at doing a Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild sequel trailer analysis as well.
Absolutely.
See if we can fit that in, Rich. Some busy schedules for us ahead. But,
and I promise that I will do my absolute best to get Tabs to get the flip charts out. I will do my best, Barcadians. I will try my hardest to persuade him to get the flip charts out.
Oh, yeah, there's a rub from my back, Barcadians. But thank you for joining us. And I think, Rich, that's another one for the archives.
Indeed. Stamped and completed.